He might actually be the most derivative one of all. I mean, Christ, the same house.
Maybe so. But you forgot the first rule of surviving a stab movie. Never answer the...
I'm bored.
Wait!
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking, you must be good with your hands. We're talking, I feel a little curious myself. And we're talking, everyone knows your kind can't be trusted. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking, she's a lady. Whoa, 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 she's a lady.
A choice end song.
Oh my god. Everyone, we are discussing the Wachowskis' Bound, a seminal entry in queer cinema history.
Is it seminal considering the connotation of that?
Ovinal.
There we go. It's the winter O-vester, Trace.
But no, honestly, I chose that for my thing because I always forget every time I watch this movie how happy it makes me and how playful and like delightful it is. And to close out the movie on that needle drop, it's just like, I guess maybe by now it's kind of cliche, but it's like, it's just so fucking fun, just like this movie is.
Which is wild because, yeah, this movie has a comedic streak to it that I have definitely forgotten every time I watch it, aka the 3 times I've watched this. But, yeah, I mean, otherwise this movie could be considered so dark and so heavy in a lot of ways. Like, it's a really joyous way to end a movie.
Well, it's interesting because, yeah, it is dark, it's serious, it's a romance, it's erotic. Because, oh, yes, everyone, this is our 3rd week of erotic thrillers. Welcome to Bound. But, you know, going through, there was a Blu-ray release in 2018 from Olive's releasing, and they have this featurette with 2 film professors where they basically, like, there's a whole section where they talk about how there's a camp sensibility to this film where it's not far off from, I'm not name dropping this, they name drop this, the films of John Waters.
Really?
Yeah.
That is surprising to me because I feel like all I ever hear is, oh, this is the Wachowskis' take on the Coens' blood symbol. Yep. And I'm like, yes, obviously, but also that's didactic and very easy.
Well, I think it's just the time period, right? Like, like, oh, Tarantino, well, Pulp Fiction came out a year before. Of course they're going to say Pulp Fiction, but... Whatever. Okay, so before we get too much into this, let's bring in our guest who's waiting in the wings. All right, everyone. She is the creative director of Cinema Salem, the festival director of Salem Horror Fest. You may also remember her from our previous episodes on Copycat and Perdita Durango. Please welcome Kay Lynch.
Ooh.
For me, podcasting has always been a lot like sex. 2 people who want the same thing. They get in a room, they talk about it, they start to plan. It's kind of like flirting. It's kind of like foreplay, because the more they talk about it, the wetter they get. The only difference is I can fuck someone I've just met, but the podcast, I need to know someone like you two, like I know myself.
Okay, so you just won that game.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
Welcome back. And welcome to Bound. Also, what a fun movie to talk about.
Oh my gosh, the hottest movie ever made.
Well, that's so okay. Hot. Joe messaged me last night and was like, their chemistry is amazing. I was like, yeah, when they're just speaking to each other in a fucking room with their clothes on, it's still the hottest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. Their connection is so intense, and they're still friends to this day. Like, I think there's just like this sisterhood between them that's so sweet, and I don't know. It's so steamy.
And Kay, I'm curious. So, when did you first see this? Like, is this something you came around to recently?
Gosh, no. I saw it back when I worked at Blockbuster many years ago, and have seen it several times over the years, and every time I watch it I fall more and more in love with it because it's a perfect film. It is so tightly constructed, like every shot, you know, all the lines in the script, the banter is ripped right from the 1940s and film noir, the art direction, and they invented like rigs and shit to get, you know, a lot of like the sex scene is like super complicated, but the way it was made, but it is extremely intimate. And it's just, I think it's a masterpiece, honestly. And it was the Wachowski sisters' first film.
Yes. And we'll have lots to talk about that too. And of course, also what the mindset was about these two at the time, presumably straight cisgender men making a lesbian film like this.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I'm sure we will have plenty to say. Though this was a college watch for me. I'd always heard about it as, that lesbian movie. And so right. I do think describing it like that does it a disservice, because while, yes, this is a very queer film, it's explicitly queer, the sex scene we have is one of the hottest scenes I've ever seen, in a non-porn related film. Honestly, it's hotter than some porn related films that I've seen. But it's just so much more than that. It is, as I said earlier, this wildly funny, romantic, erotic, heist caper film, and it's just so fun, and I was never expecting that the first time I watched it.
Totally. I mean, the funny thing for me was I always heard about it by reputation, and I didn't see this until 2019, Trace, when you literally introduced this to me when I came down to Fantastic Fest for our live show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what were your first impressions of it when you did see it?
It was interesting because I'm one of those people who is very easily overhyped on film, so I was very trepidatious that it wasn't going to live up to its reputation. And yet, at the end of the day, I'm in full agreement with everything Kay said. This thing is a masterpiece. It is so well crafted. It's not surprising to me that the Wachowskis have gone on to deliver these just really technically accomplished films that have broken new ground cinematically. And I think this also, to me, I'm a big fan of their work with Sense8, and I think that this anticipates a lot of the direction narratively that they will go in as they become more in tune with who they are as individuals, not just as filmmakers.
Yeah, I mean, this was basically an audition piece for them. Because, they did this, and then their next film is literally The Matrix. But, they walked in every day with, a complete shot list. There was very little improv done in this film. It was very technically proficient, the filming process was. But at the same time, it sounds like everyone had a really fun time making this movie.
Yeah, one of the reasons why it is so meticulous is because they had such a hard time casting it. There was so many, they went through so many potential actresses and whose management kept telling them, don't do this film. If you play a lesbian, it will ruin your career. So it took them a long time to finally get a cast. So in the time that they were trying to figure it out, not even, wondering if it was even ever going to get made, they spent that time rewriting and planning it out, and they have a background in comic books, and so they storyboarded every aspect of this. So they'd be on the set, and the actors like Jed Fertilli, Joe Pantoliano, they would want to improv, but they're like, no, you can't say that. I need you to say this exact line, because 3 scenes from now it will make sense. And yeah, it's just brilliant.
It's funny that you mentioned they were into comic books, because a big influence too on the style of this film was Frank Miller's Sin City graphic novels. And I think you can see that a lot, especially in the scenes with the bathroom, where it's a white palette, and then it's you get a streak of red in there whenever someone bleeds, which is often in that bathroom.
Yeah, it's all black. So obviously this is a 90s film, so it's in full color, but it's made to reflect the film noir style of the 40s. Yeah, and so the color palette still is all black and white. You have the black and white tile, you have the black and white outfits, and in contrast with the red in Violet's dress, the red in Caesar's tie, the red in the paneling of the wall. The only other color that really shows up is green, the color of money.
I think even too, the architecture and specifically also the design of the wallpaper and stuff. It's
very Art Deco.
Yeah, right? And that makes sense though, because film noir, the classic film noir, took a lot of inspiration from German Expressionism, and I think you can see that in a lot of the shots here. But okay, well, let's start with film noir. So I've made my thoughts on it clear. I'm not an expert on it. I think we talked about it quite a bit in our episode on The Seventh Victim. Maybe even Cat People a little bit. I'm not...
One of the two, most likely. Yeah.
Most likely.
I mean, they're both Luton, and of the time, his style helped codify the film noir visual aesthetic.
Right. And so, I mean, again, everyone, just a really quick primer. Film noir is a term that describes a stylish Hollywood crime drama, particularly those that emphasize cynical attitudes and motivations. And the cynical part's really important for some reason. Well, I'll tell you why. But the 1940s and 50s are generally regarded as the classic period of American film noir, their heyday, if you will. So Film noir of this era is associated with a low-key black and white visual style, again, roots in German expressionist cinematography. Many of the prototypical stories and much of the attitude of classic film noir derive from the hard-boiled school of crime fiction that emerged in the United States during the Great Depression. So, 1944's Murder My Sweet, 1946's The Killers, 47's Kiss of Death. This is all post-World War II, and in the country at this time, masculinity was very threatened and diminished. We as a country were adjusting to this new world, not doing very well, and there was danger everywhere, especially from women, which is why you see the femme fatale archetype in the film noirs. That's kind of what drove this era of film noir until it ended with Orson Welles' 1958 film Touch of Evil, which sort of emerged out of noir and started turning into something else. But it's generally considered to be the last of the classic film noirs.
I just wanted to jump in about gender roles. So the reason why masculinity was quote under attack following the war was because while the men were out fighting the war, the woman had to step up and fill in a lot of the traditionally male-dominated industries, and they just started to get a taste of this freedom and this agency, and we're starting to really embrace it. And so when the men came back, there was this expectation. They're like, well, we're back now, we want our jobs back. And the women were like, well, I kind of like this. So women were having this really this moment of power, and I think that's what's reflected in the femme fatale tropes.
Well, because you have men making all these movies too.
It's not as simple as that.
They're terrified. They're all the characters are terrified of the female power. It's really great.
But wait, Joe, what were you saying, though? It's not as simple as that?
No, because, that inherently suggests that men are all scared of women, as though... I think it's more people are trying to capture the culture at large, what's actually happening. So if they see that there's this undercurrent or this paranoia or this mistrust, right? The films will always end up reflecting that, regardless of who's actually making the films. If they're in tune with what's going on, then they're going to start to pick up on that and build it into scripts and finished products. I just didn't want to let you off the hook that it's oh, well, of course, men are making these movies, so they're scared of women. That's too broad a generalization.
No, please, I'm glad you did it. Push back, by all means.
Well, yeah, and some of these filmmakers were deliberately commenting on that as well, completely aware of what was going on, and willfully and sometimes gleefully giving the woman the power and the agency in these films.
Well, so noir kind of died down for a bit, though. So the period of the late 50s and early 60s was a period of major upheaval in Hollywood. The city was falling apart and rebuilding itself. Independent productions really picked up. People like Francis Ford Coppola were coming out of film school and making movies. And so now directors that might reference genres, but they didn't necessarily make genre films. So they wanted to move beyond generic structures to make really personal films. The other things happening during this period were the civil rights movement. So around the time Chinatown comes out in 1974, there's a backlash to those movements. And on the political left, there's kind of a dismay around that backlash. So a lot of the films coming out around that time are about coming to terms with the backlash, with the upheaval in the USA at large, that might lead to a return in cinema that was a deeply cynical genre, the film noir. This brings us into the 90s, which coincided with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. So you start seeing film noir make a return, but again, it's not black and white. It's not actual quote-unquote film noir, which I feel like that's the only genre where it's it has to be black and white to be considered a certain genre.
Well, I think it's an embodiment of all the things you're talking about. So you mentioned there's cynicism, there's a change in gender roles, but then there's also technical aspects like chiaroscuro lighting and that kind of thing.
Well, and so, we have 1990s The Grifters, 1993's Red Rock West, 1995's Devil in a Blue Dress. And these are all what we're calling neo-noir nowadays. And neo-noir plays with noir, but in order to really be something different, it needs to play with things to make it its own thing. And the interesting thing is that neo-noir was a genre that was kind of created, whereas noir just kind of happened. I'm not sure that I'm making a distinction of that really well, but neo-noir was created specifically in conversation with noir.
Yeah, so film noir, it's important to note that, and you were getting at this, Trace, that it was not a genre. When they were making these films, noir was not a genre that anyone was aware that they were making. The term film noir came about after those series of films by French critics who were looking at the American films of that time and going, there's something going on here.
There's a trend there.
Right. All this dark contrast shadows, ever so moody and looking to desperately trying to get some money. And the woman, they just started noticing a lot of these threads. And it's the critics, the French critics, who dubbed it film noir as a reflection. And so in the 90s, the neo-noir was deliberate. It was the first time they're making these movies with film noir as a visual language codified.
And so they got to play with race or sexuality, which is something that actual noir films couldn't do because the production code existed. And when you're making those films at that time, you could not have a film character literally get away with murder or be seen sharing a bed with anyone but a spouse. So what you find in a neo-noir is a preoccupation with an attempt to reclaim masculinity that's been too diminished, but it inverts the scale of the original film noir. So you end up with an equally deranged universe, but now it has metaphorical air quotes around it. It kind of winks at you. It's playing with what film noir took very seriously.
It's got this subversive humor that is that reminds me of Tales from the Crypt episode. It's sort of this there's this irony that you this very cryptic karma that comes and bites you in the end when you are driven by lust and greed. And one of the references that the Wachowskis had told specifically Joe Pantoliano to watch the Treasure of Sierra Madre and to look at Humphrey Bogart's character. And that is very much like a Tales from the Crypt story of someone just driven mad by greed. And so his performance in this film, particularly towards the end when he's ransacking Johnny's house to try to find the cash, he's just dwindling in madness that is part of that sort of sardonic humor.
And you see a lot of that in Bound. So, even moving into Bound, and Joe, I think this is interesting that we're talking about, how do the Wachowskis take a noir and make it their own, subvert the tropes, when we quite literally had that conversation last week with a very different type of director subverting noir tropes with a simple favor.
Yeah.
So into Bound, Bound obviously plays with the idea of a femme fatale. We've got the dupe of a man, the sort of pathetic excuse of a man who's easily manipulated by a woman's sexuality. But the Wachowskis, what they did with this screenplay was create women that you don't find in film noir. Femme fatales were sexual, they were desirable, but they weren't desiring. They desired money, but their own sexual desire was rarely relevant. Their sexuality was more of a performance as well, a tool. So part of the conceit for the audience is that these women in this film were actually kind and wonderful. They don't do what would happen in the old version of noir. They don't turn on each other. They don't have some kind of ulterior motive beyond what you're led to expect. They don't disappoint you or each other. Similarly, even Violet's role as the gangster's Moll, the character that is just with the gangster as a side piece, she would normally be a stupid person because she's with the gangster, but she's actually one of the smartest people in the film, and so that's already a subversion of that character archetype. But okay, going into how this actually got made, because making a lesbian movie in 1985 was kind of a big deal.
Especially at this budget. There was it was a very interesting time for queer cinema in the 90s when it came down to the independent level. And this film kind of straddles independent into mainstream. It was a big budget for what it was, but it was the biggest, most notable mainstream lesbian depiction of a lesbian relationship in cinema until then.
Well, and that's the thing. So just to give y'all a picture portrait of what lesbian cinema was like in 1995. So I'm pulling a piece from Guinevere Turner's article, We Know How This Ends. And Guinevere Turner, if you don't know, she's the woman who co-wrote American Psycho and the notorious Betty Page.
Oh, right. Yeah.
She's also a famous lesbian. She's had roles on The L Word, things like that. But this, what she says is, when Bound came out in 1996, lesbians were nothing short of delirious with excitement. To really understand why, let's remind ourselves what we've been served up to that point. In 1991, we had Thelma and Louise. No, they were not lovers, but somehow they felt like ours. They were kick-ass, they were living on the edge, and then they died. Next up was Fried Green Tomatoes, where our well-trained lesbo brains could certainly fill in the blanks. Obviously, they were in love. We didn't need, a sex scene to know that, but would have killed for one. 1992 brings us Basic Instinct, and we were titillated and protesting all at once. Then in 1993, Katie Lang was on the cover of Vanity Fair and New York Magazine, coined the term lesbian chic. Rose, Trash, and I were in the middle of making Go Fish in 1994, but not to be chic. We just were trying to see ourselves on the big screen. A spate of other indie lesbian films followed, including The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love in 1995, as well as 1996's The Watermelon Woman and 1995's When Night is Falling. And we ate them all up. And then along came Bound, a mainstream movie with lesbian characters. Our eyes narrowed to suspicious slits, but of course, we watched. So, it sounds like it was easier for the Wachowskis to get this film greenlit, as opposed to, as you said, Kay, getting the film cast. So, they had just gotten off a job working as screenwriters on Assassins, Richard Donner's 1995 action film starring Antonio Banderas and Sylvester Stallone. And they had written this film while under contract with famed movie producer Dino De Laurentiis. And unfortunately for them, their script for Assassins was tinkered with and rewritten to the point where they weren't really happy with it. So, they wanted to go off and direct their own movie and ideally have more creative control in the final product. They were still under contract with De Laurentiis, so they had to stick with him.
They wrote the script for Assassins, and Dino De Laurentiis bought it for $250,000. And at the time, they were like, because they were painting houses or like doing construction.
Yeah, that's money.
Construction, yeah.
Like, yeah, they were like, oh my God, we're rich. Like, we can retire now. Like, it was huge money for them. A week later in Variety, there was a headline that said that Dino De Laurentiis then sold that script to Warner Brothers for $2.5 million.
Yeah.
$2.5 million. So they were like,
God.
yeah. So when Dino came back to them and was like, what else you got? They're like, yeah, we're going to do things a little different this time.
Well,
we
so
learned the hard way.
That's the thing, you know? I mean, they were trying to get someone to finance this, but they were under contract by De Laurentiis. And apparently a lot of studios that took it to were like, well, if you make Corky a man, we'll finance this, but we're not doing it with two women. And they were like, well, why? The whole point of neo-noir is to subvert the tropes. So no, we're going to make it with two women.
Literally, we've seen this with heterosexual couples a billion times. Why would you just remake that movie?
Well, looking back on this film through a trans lens, knowing that the Wachowskis have since transitioned and been living out, it's really interesting to see how they play with gender roles at this time, because in a way, it is between a heterosexual couple. I mean, it definitely wears its lesbian cred on its sleeve, but Corky is playing an extremely masculine character, and her inspiration for the role were classic actors like Marlon Brando, Montgomery Clift, Robert Mitchum. And so it's just so interesting that it's like, yes, these are two women, but also Gina is playing the masculine role.
And we can talk about this more when we get to the actual relationship and the sex scene, but it's also like the aggressor in the relationship is the feminine one, not the butcher.
Yes.
Which I think is really interesting.
Mm-hmm, a femme top.
Yeah. Indeed.
But yeah, seeing film noir as a genre within which they could tell a contained story and twist conventions, they describe Billy Wilder as a big influence. Billy Wilder, of course, being the director of films like Double Indemnity and The Lost Weekend, but he also directed the Marilyn Monroe gender-bending classic Some Like It Hot. So I think that's really interesting.
That is, I hadn't considered that.
But they write the script, and when executives at some studios, they were like, no, we're not going to do this. De Laurentiis, apparently all he needed, like he was like, oh, wait, Violet's a woman? Yeah. And Corky's a woman. Yes. Done. $6 million. There you go.
It'll be so hot. Lesbians.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a really key element too, to like the depiction of lesbians in media at the time, is that on the underground, it was a lot of people just trying to see themselves on screen
as real people.
Right. But in the mainstream, it was lesbianism was always eroticized, and there was a big softcore market in the 90s that was,
of course,
that was just very exploited to the tilt. And when they did this scene in the lesbian bar, they actually filmed at a real San Francisco lesbian bar with actual lesbians. The bartender was Susie Bright, who is a very famous writer and sex educator. And so when they showed the dailies to Dino De Laurentiis, he's like, we have a problem. They're like, what? They're like, these are not lesbians. And they're like, no, actually. Yeah. They were like, no, these are literally lesbians. This is an actual lesbian bar. And he goes, no, I'll show you. He sent them a binder of these like models, and they were like, these are lesbians. And so they're like, we have to redo the scene. And to their credit, this was like their second day of work, and they said, if you redo this scene, then you're gonna have to fire us. And so they really stuck it, and thank God.
Well, that's the thing, because I mean, I won't I'm not pulling any more from that Guinevere Turner article, but like she goes on to basically kind of talk about how I liked Bound, but begrudgingly, because I was so conflicted with the idea that these two, again, at the time, straight cisgender men had gotten so many things right about our culture, about our sex lives. And so I liked it, but it really calls into mind, like, okay, what about representation? Like, what we have this kind of niche subculture of film that now straight cisgender men are coming into and making films about it, and now they're getting it right. What the fuck am I supposed to think about that?
But apparently, as you mentioned, Kay, Susie Bright, she wasn't just there, manning the bar in this scene. She ended up being asked to consult on the sex scenes and on the staging and the presentation of the lesbian bar. So I think part of the takeaway that I would say, obviously, when you fold in the Wachowski sisters' transness, maybe they were already onto something. But I think it's a testament to why you should also be consulting with the community if you are not an identifying member at the time.
Well, and I think, too, so we can put a pin in the trans conversation until maybe later in the film. But I do want to point out that one of them was actually in the middle of transitioning while they were filming this. It was just it was hush-hush. It was hush-hush. Like she wouldn't let anyone take her pictures. It was like a thing where it's like if you were in the know, you knew. But I feel like people think, oh yeah, they were transitioning in 2012. It's like, no, it started much earlier than that.
Yeah. Well, in fact, the inspiration for this film was I think it was Lily was literally at the cinema watching Silence of the Lambs, and she left during that scene, went to the bathroom and cried. And she when she recalled this, she was like, I just kept thinking, name one film where the queers have a happy ending. And she couldn't think of a film. And so it was in that moment, she was like, I'm going to make that movie. And it's just so nice. But so they, at least Lily was aware of her gender identity then early on. And it was a long process to come out. But also, Jennifer Tilly and Gina are cis heterosexual women, so they the fact that they got it right as well is so it's a huge testament, I think, to Joe's point, Susie Bright, and the contribution that she brought to this film.
Well, but that's the thing too, though, because a lot of people, so when they were like, oh my god, you got this right, a lot of them did credit Susie Bright with that. But of course, now people look back and they're like, oh, there actually were two women directing this film.
Right.
Okay, so moving on to the casting, though. So as you said, Kay, the Wachowskis did struggle to cast the roles of Violet and Corky, seemingly because of the lesbian content of the film. A few actresses or a few of their agents were interested in this film. That being said, though, they had actually secured Linda Hamilton to play the role of Violet.
Violet! Wait, that's so crazy.
Violet? That's not the one you would cast her for.
But that's the thing, though. So I think at this time, of course, Linda Hamilton is famous at this point for Terminator 2, but Terminator 2 was her playing against type, because she was playing the exact opposite of that type in the Terminator. So again, I think she was going to go back into playing more effeminate roles. So they did want her for Corky, but she wanted Violet.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Which is the same as Jennifer Tilly.
Well, that's okay. So that's the thing. So they supposedly sought out Jennifer Tilly to play Corky and Jennifer Tilly wanted to play Corky because at this point she had been Oscar nominated for her role in Woody Allen's Bullets Over Broadway, which, by the way, I still have not seen, but I'm dying to see it just because I want to see what her Oscar nomination was for. But she was only getting offered sex pot roles and The Other Woman, so she wanted to play the butcher Corky character.
Right.
So, yes, they actually wanted Hamilton to play Corky and Tilly for Violet, and both actresses wanted to stretch and play against type. And apparently, I think Lana Wachowski was like, "Oh my God, you actresses, why do you want to keep stretching? Just play the roles we want you to play."
Do what we say.
So Hamilton eventually, though, fell out, supposedly because of creative differences. And so they bring in Rosanna Arquette to play Violet.
Oh.
At this point, Tilly is still on for Corky. But then Rosanna Arquette had to drop out because there was some TV pilot commitment. And so then, apparently at this time, the Wachowskis changed their minds and told Tilly, hey, we want you for Violet. And she goes, no, absolutely not. Corky or nothing. I don't want to do another sex pot role. I want to play something that's just different for me. So, As for Gina Gershon, her agent sent her the script but didn't want her to do it because she had just played a quote-unquote bisexual in a recent film called Showgirls. Yes. Basically, like, she had gone through, she was like, no, I'm going to do this. And they were like, no, you really can't do this. And she goes, okay, well, you know what? I'm leaving. So she left her management because she was also like, they told me Showgirls was going to be this thing, this thing, this thing, and it was not that. Right. So why would I trust them when they're telling me not to do this thing? So...
Right, and she's like, I need a role I can prove I can act. I mean, she walks away from Showgirls unscathed, but I think she was ahead of everyone else of how the movie was going to be perceived, and so she's like, I'm gonna have to redeem myself.
Well, but I think it's just even as we say good, as she knew what movie she was in, I think, when she was acting, but even just proximity to the film was kind of dangerous at the time.
Sure. Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so they get Gershon, and they tell Tilly, they're like, okay, hey, we have Gina Gershon, she's going to be here, but she's open to playing either Corky or Violet. This is a lie. But why don't you come in and, like, we'll do a chemistry test with you. So they fly them to, like, Vancouver or something, and when Tilly shows up, she walks into this bar where they're, I guess a hotel bar where they're at, and Gershon is already talking as if she's already playing Corky. She got in all of her ear piercings. She went out to lesbian bars to try out some of the pickup lines that were in the script, and even told the Wachowskis, hey, we've got to switch some of these out because they're not working. Well, Tilly arrives, and what she had done was she had already done her hair in the style that she thought Corky should look. And she felt duped because literally she walks in and Gina Gershon points at her and goes, that's the hair Corky should have.
Oh, no.
But so immediately Jennifer Tilly is like, I don't like this bitch. She's taking my part. This is not fair. And she goes, oh, I have a headache, and goes upstairs to her room. So a few days go by, and basically Tilly's manager calls her and is like, hey, are you going to do this or not? Because if not, they're going to move on. And she goes, fine, I'll do Violet. She found out later the Wachowskis never wanted her for Corky. They only wanted her for Violet, and they were playing her the entire fucking time.
Oh, no.
Well, thankfully now she's a huge champion of the film now. Like, do you see her talk about this movie? She loves this movie, so thank God.
Well, and again, like, so this Blu-ray came out in 2018. They've got new interviews with Tilly and Gershon, but the commentary on the film, which features both Wachowskis, Susan Bright, and the cinematographer, maybe it's the editor, and Tilly and Gershon, but they're talking about Laserdisc because they're unfamiliar with the concept of commentary. So this was done in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
And they were both late. Jennifer Tilly came in halfway through, and then Gina came. And then...
like the last 30. But it is a really good commentary, though. I will say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bound was filmed over a 38-day period in Santa Monica, California. The Wachowskis... Okay, this is also really fun. The Wachowskis' original director of photography resigned, claiming that he could not film with the limited budget available, nor did he know anyone else who would be willing to work so cheaply. Okay. The guy they found to replace this guy was Bill Pope, who, quote unquote, knew a bunch of cheap guys who'd be willing to work with him on the budget. Now, here's the thing. He came from the school of Sam Raimi, shooting films like Darkman and Army of Darkness. And literally, when De Laurentiis told the Wachowskis, they were like, oh yeah, he just shot Army of Darkness. And they were like, Army of Darkness, get him. And I think you can see that in some of the camera work here.
Absolutely.
There's a shot where we're following a phone cord, like, to the wall. But then there's like a knot and a loop in it, and the camera does the loop.
It follows the loop.
Yes!
I love that moment. It's so stylish.
Well, and so it should not come as a surprise then that this guy would also go on to work with Edgar Wright on films like The World's End, Scott Pilgrim, and Baby Driver.
Okay.
Well, and also The Matrix, where there's a lot of...
and The Matrix.
Just that little one. Yeah.
But there's like, there's not bullet time per se, but there's like slow-mo techniques that are, that are like the building blocks of what bullet time would become.
With very few, if any, digital effects, too. That's the big difference between this and The Matrix. Obviously, The Matrix is more showy, but I think that The Bound is very showy in more subtle ways. Well, sometimes, because there's a part where when they kill Gino and he's doing that fall on the ground, where I'm like, how did they shoot this?
Yeah.
They had to build because he's the older gentleman, and they were like, absolutely not. This man cannot fall on the ground. he won't get back up.
We don't want to kill an actor.
Yeah, so they they put together this rig and basically lowered him on this mechanical thing that it's really brilliant, just incredible. And I think only someone who worked on like the Evil Dead films in the early days could could envision, how to maximize minimum resources.
100%.
Because that's a long shoot for $6 million too. Like, I was expecting you to say 20 days, Trace.
No. And I don't know if they went over schedule or not, but I mean, they got it done. Maybe having just like the 2 apartments was beneficial for them too.
Right.
That's true. It's basically a single location.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get to the release, Bound was rated by the MPAA as R. So originally it did not get an R rating, but they had to cut some scenes. So it's R for strong sexuality, violence, and language. But they basically had to cut 13 seconds of footage out to get the R rating. So, of course, the Blu-ray has both theatrical and unrated cuts. Basically, the difference is their first sexual encounter when they're caught by Caesar on the couch. There's an additional shot of Violet taking Corky's hand and putting it between her legs. In the sex scene, there's a shot of Violet fingering Corky, like full hand on vag. There's a shot of their titties that are like bouncing off each other. And then there's a longer shot of Corky coming with Violet's finger in her mouth. There's also one extra shot. I know. There's also one extra shot of Shelley's head banging against the toilet in his torture scene. So again, that's all. Like, it doesn't take away from the movie. However, like, I mean, don't take away from that sex scene, because the other thing with the sex scene is like they intentionally did it in one single take because they were worried that De Laurentiis, when marketing it overseas, would
try to cut it.
Yeah, he would cut it and do insert shots of porn actresses having sex. And so the Wachowskis were like, oh, the way around that is to just do it in one shot, because then they can't cut into this scene.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the film premiered on August 31st, 1996 at the Venice Film Festival, and in September went on to play at TIFF. It opened in U.S. theaters on October 4th, 1996, distributed by Gramercy Pictures, showing only in 261 theaters, and it closed after 3 weeks. Yeah. So according to Tilly and Gershon, they didn't know how to market it because of the lesbian content, so they marketed it towards 18-year-old boys, and when they should have marketed it towards literally anyone else.
So it's a Jennifer's Body situation.
Yep. Very much so. But its opening weekend, it landed in 12th place, where it earned about $900,000, and it went on to gross $3.8 million in the States and $3.2 million from other territories, for a worldwide gross of $7 million against that production budget of $6 million. Critical reception was overwhelmingly positive, though. It's got an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 7.9 out of 10, a 61 out of 100 on Metacritic, and Letterboxd users have given it a 7.8 out of 10. It won the Grand Jury Award Honorable Mention at the 1996 LA Outfest. It won GLAAD's 1997 Award for Outstanding Wide Release Film. Joe, as you said, the Wachowskis were compared by many to the Coen brothers, with a few critics pointing out the similarities between Bound and the Coens' 1984 debut Blood Simple. Others compared it to the works of Tarantino, since Pulp Fiction was released the year before, and Alfred Hitchcock. A few naysayers thought the film was too violent, but funnily enough... Okay, so here's the thing. Funnily enough, the sexual content did not seem to be a point of contention with anyone. In fact, the sex scenes were admired for being tasteful, discreet, and realistic, but it was the violence that really threw people off.
Weird. I can't help but wonder if it's because people were almost enraptured by the sex that when you see the violence, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so confronting, because I thought I was watching this like really intimate sexual love story.
Yeah, because it like draws you in, it pulls you in, then it's like, oh my god, his fingers on the bathroom floor.
Right. I guess, I mean, maybe because like we're horror buffs, but I'm just kind of like, it's not like anyone's getting gutted in this movie. Like, the worst we see honestly is that finger, but it's really the sound of Shelley's head hitting that toilet, where you're like, oh shit, like that's violent, but it's not like...
Yeah. But if you've seen any mob movie, this is going to be, common. Right? Oh, I've seen this a million times.
And in test screenings, they had considered cutting that scene, like cutting down that scene
really?
where Shelley gets his finger cut off. And the Wachowskis fought for it hard, because they were like, no, because we need to know that he's willing to do it, because later in the film he threatens it to Violet, and we need or to Corky, and you need to believe that he'll actually go through with it.
100%. Yep.
Okay, I want to bring up a quote from Variety. Todd McCarthy, a critical critic who did not like the film. He said that the directors had no sense of humor and lacked depth, that the film was pretentious, superficial, and heavy-handed, which is incredibly wrong, but it's just like, there is, I've heard people describe this film, Joe, Chase, you had indicated this as well too, about it being campy. And I can almost see it. Like, the humor is pretty, like, subversive and funny, and the violence is almost, like, over the top. But I just struggle to find this movie campy. Like, it's just, it's thrilling. It's sexy. It's, like, erotic. It's not, I don't know. I have a hard time. Heavy-handed, maybe, in like, okay, how many whooshes are we gonna do with that camera?
Okay, but wait. So I'll say this. It's a campy joke I would say is like, whenever he catches them having sex, and he's like, oh, he shakes her hand, and it's like, she hesitates because it's like, oh, like where? But here's the thing. I did show this movie to
dark in here.
I showed this movie to two of my gay friends years ago, and they really struggled with the acting, specifically the acting of Jennifer Tilly. They thought it wasn't real enough. It was too fake. It was laughably bad, is what they had said.
Whoa.
I know, and it was really like I was like almost crying like hearing them say this because they were bitching about it the entire fucking movie. But again, I think part of that is it's like that stylized acting in a neo-noir, but it's also like it goes towards Tilly's character of like playing dumb, but she's smarter than how she thinks. But everyone else around her is so stupid they buy into it. I don't know.
Like, she talks higher. Like, when she talks to the men, she has like more of a baby voice, and like, oh, I'm helpless, and I'm so cute, and she talks much lower to Corky because it's like more, that's her like real voice. She's talking to her genuinely.
But it really hurt me because I was like, Jennifer Tilly. I mean, look. Gina Gershon is really good in this movie, but ultimately it is Tilly that has the most screen time, I think, in this film. And so...
Right, yeah.
And she drives all the plot, yeah.
Yes!
100%. As you said, Trey, she's also the smartest character in the film. Like, she is the one who's instigating everything.
Everything. And she's the one that has to, like, be on her feet the most, right? Because she's the one where it's like, if something goes wrong, she's the one that has to deal with it right then in that moment. Not Corky. Corky's just listening on the other side of the wall.
Act real, baby.
And she has to deal with the expectations of the men of like fulfilling their vision of what being a woman is. But when she seeks what she really wants from Corky, and then Corky starts to doubt her as well. And she's like, no, I know who I am. And she's like, it's almost like she just can't win in the beginning. Cause she's like, even with this woman that I'm really into, I want to fuck. She rejects her for different reasons.
Yes, because we can talk about the sex work conversation too when we get to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Joe.
I was going to say, now we're just talking about the film. So why do we get into it?
Take us off.
Okay, so I am going to bring in one source throughout this. It's Kelly Kessler, who wrote Bound Together for Film Quarterly in the summer of 2003. So we open the film with this roaming camera going through a walk-in closet, and eventually it reveals Corky, Gina Gershon, has been tied up. And I'm just going to say it.
Yep.
We don't need this here. It's fucking stupid. I don't understand why we begin the film with this.
So I will tell you, because we will cut back to the scene at one point later too. We just randomly cut back to Corky in this closet tied up.
Yep.
The point of it is, and again, whether it works for you or not, your mileage may vary, is because you're constantly supposed to be wondering if Violet's going to turn on her in this film. So by knowing that she does get, at least at some point, Corky will get tied up and put in a closet, you're wondering, oh, is it just Caesar or is it just Violet, or is it Caesar and Violet fucking her over to work together?
See, I would still maintain we do a good enough job in the other scenes to make the audience question whether or not the two women can trust each other. So this to me was just, oh, well, we know that she's going to end up getting caught at some point. So it's just a matter of when. I
don't even disagree with you. I think that they like to do a motif of closets too, which we can talk about as well. But sure. Nevertheless, yeah, it's fine. I do want to say though, so I messaged Joe this on the side, but like I was listening to this and I was like, wow, the score is like really overbearing. It's really intense. I love it so much. But it sounds, it's reminding me of something. And I was like, it kind of sounds like the score for the 1999 remake of House on Haunted Hill. So I was like, well, let me just go through my little rabbit hole. Oh, look, they share the same composer. Don Davis scored both of these films.
That's awesome. Well, I love the title sequence too. It's like Terminator, like when it's like bound, and it's got that like it's in a noir font, but it's like presented like the Last Action Hero.
It's also done practically. Those were foam letters made by famed artist Patti Podesta. So yeah, she designed this title sequence for them using these foam letters.
That's incredible. I would love to see footage of that being made. That's so cool.
There's like a 10-minute featurette on the Blu-ray where it's just an interview with her talking about how she did it.
Really?
Oh, I want to see that. That's so cool.
Wow. Really selling up this DVD release train.
It's really good. Like, honestly, it's really good.
I have the Arrow one. I gotta get this one.
Oh, I didn't know that Arrow had one. Shit.
Jesus Christ. I mean, here's the thing. We love physical media, but also please try not to bilk us with 12 different releases of popular films.
And to be fair, the Arrow release is a region B, which has made it difficult for me to watch again.
Oh, that's why I don't have it. Got it.
Okay, so after this closet opening, we don't get an indicator, but it's pretty obvious that we have flashback to a time before, and this is where we are introduced to Corky locking eyes with Violet, Jennifer Tilly, as she and Caesar, Joey Pants, ride the elevator. And right from the very first moment we see these two, the chemistry is electric.
Eye fuckery right off the gate.
So much eye fucking.
The sexual tension, I watching it, I feel like if I lean forward, there's like a force pushing me back because the sexual tension is so thick in this scene.
Mm-hmm. And it's all the better because Caesar does not pay attention to any of this. He's completely tuned out to all of this. And meanwhile, these two women could hypothetically go at each other right here in the elevator.
I do like, too, because, I mean, I mentioned earlier how this film is kind of playing with, the gangster who's duped by the woman, blah, blah, blah. And so I feel like from the get-go, you kind of feel like Caesar's a bit of a buffoon. But as the film goes on, the film subverts those expectations by having him be smarter than you realize as the plot goes on.
Right. Yeah, because it's not as interesting if he was a dupe the whole time. He has to be more of a foil. And
his biggest mistakes are ego-driven. He's kind of he's dumb in the sense that he allows his ego to take over, and it's anytime someone challenges his masculinity is when he does something to make it worse for him.
Yeah, he's not just stupid. Like Johnny is stupid. Caesar is dangerous.
He'll fuck anything in high heels. I love that.
I think that's why I like this movie so much. I mean, one of the reasons why I like this movie so much is because, again, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, okay, well, if this happens, it's going to be fucked. But the movie's not going to go there because we have to kind of stay, predictable. And it doesn't. Like things unravel much quicker than I would have expected them to when watching this film.
Right. So before we leave the elevator, I realize we're just getting started, but I'm going to bring in Kessler. And part of the reason I ended up liking her article, it's a little bit older, from 2003, but she looks at the film through 3 different ways. So the first is the film using images of desire that work for both lesbian and heterosexual viewers, which is where I'm going to draw the majority of my quotes from. But then she also looks at how strategic use of stereotypes are employed, and that's primarily in the depiction of lesbians, and obviously Susie Bright contributes greatly to that.
Right.
And then finally, the third element is camper parody of a prototypical Hollywood gangster. So, Kay, when you were saying, I don't really see the camp appeal, obviously Trace referenced some jokes that are pretty amusing, but I would say the depiction of gangsters is so Hollywood traditional, it almost feels like we're parodying them.
Yeah. I could totally see that.
So specifically thinking about the way that the sexual intimacy is presented, Kessler says of the two, the scenes that depict actual sexual contact between the two main characters have a strong voyeuristic feel. And I think that this is also important because this film is in conversation, obviously, with neo-noir, but also erotic thrillers, because we're bringing in a lot of, noir is the genesis of erotic thrillers, which is what happens when we get to the 80s. And erotic thrillers anticipate neo-noirs, which is where we go in the 90s. So it's all in conversation. Genres are always fluid and malleable in that sense. But Kessler says, a number of medium shots have both characters in frame. So if you think about the way that the elevator sequence is shot, we often see both women in the frame, and the camera is more often objectively looking in on the action rather than encouraging a specific point of identification by reporting from the point of view of any given character. So I encourage folks, if you haven't watched the film or if you're interested in watching it again after you hear our conversation, go back and look at the way that the women are shot. And specifically, you can focus on the sex scenes, but it's often not from one person's point of view. It's both women are frequently visible on screen. So you're not meant to be like, oh, that's Corky's point of view. And then you say, oh, that's how she sees Violet. We're seeing both of them so that we're invested in the intimacy between the two characters.
We also get a ton of overhead shots in this movie, which, I mean, employed sporadically. It's not often, but every time we get one, I'm like, God, I want more of these types of shots in movies.
Yep. An overhead shot can be very effective, and it also helps us to orient ourselves geographically.
Yes.
That's not a word, but...
Geographically.
Which is wild because the key sex scene in the film, like the showpiece, they're so intimate and like having this like incredible sex on the bed, but they had false walls. You know, it's the one take, so the camera's first of all, the bed is on a stage, like a little platform, and the camera is revolving around the bed, and you see all the walls, and so they had to like move the walls as they went along. And orchestrate that whole thing and like move props and everything. And so initially they were like, we want a closed set for this sex scene so we can like feel safe, feel in the moment, feel really intimate. And they're like, yeah.
Sure.
But then when they like laid it all out, it was literally like the shot with the most involved people. They're like, they got accountants in. We're like, we need to move that lamp and this.
Well, okay, no. Jennifer Tilly says on her interview from like 2018, she was like, yeah, it was like all of a sudden people that didn't need to be there, they found a reason to be there on a Sunday.
A little from column A, a little from column B.
The truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm here to lift the flower pot.
Yeah, I have to be here. I'm an essential member of the set here.
But I mean, it's also just a testament to their performance. The fact that all that was going on around them. The director, because there's no dialogue on that scene. It's all the score. And so, the director Wachowskis are literally like yelling, like, wall, hand, boob, come. Jesus. And you get that performance out of them as if, there's no one else in the world but each other. It's just incredible.
That's wild. Yeah, and then we as audience members are just sitting here jaded going like, I guess that's hot, yeah.
Oh,
do you have any idea what we had to do to get this?
Yeah, no, I'm all in.
Okay, so we exit this elevator. Corky goes into her apartment. We learn that she's basically been hired to do renovations for a guy who is not there. And she can hear Violet and Caesar fucking through the walls because thin walls are a plot point in this film. We need to be able to hear what people are doing on the other side.
Okay, but what I love though, so no straight sex scene is shown in this film. We only hear them, whereas all the queer sex is like front and center. But again, here's kind of a campy joke, right? So we hear Violet and Caesar fucking, and it sounds very maybe not aggressive, but like kind of forceful. While at the same time, though, we're kind of matching that action to Corky snaking a pipe down the drain of this bathtub, and she's forcing the fuck out of it. As we pan back to this instructions on the machine that says, "Don't force snake, slow and easy does it."
Lessons that maybe men could pay attention to.
Well, I also think it's showing how Corky's getting horny. She's like, God damn it, I wish that was me. And the many times when Violet's fucking someone behind that wall, the way Violet is engaging, is first of all, like she says she doesn't fuck men, even though she does for money. But she's like, she knows how thin the walls are. So in a way, she's like playing to Corky during that.
Putting on a performance. She's horning her up.
Well, and pay attention too, because this is the first. I mean, I know it's like gross, like black water shit, but like pay attention to how wet this movie is, because this is something that Susie Bright points out, where it's like a lot of film noir is focusing on an erection, how hard everything is, whereas Bound, everything is wet.
Yes. I love it. So speaking of wet, after the sex is over, Violet brings over coffee, and you can tell that this is just an excuse to come over and talk to Corky and to admire that she's good at her hands and she knows how to fix things. Mm-hmm. And when Violet leaves, it's with an open invitation to stop by anytime.
This was the scene where my two gay friends were like, this is so unbelievable. And I was like, she's seducing her. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Like gay guys don't know anything about being obvious or getting laid.
God, I know. It makes me so upset.
It's so silly, right? Because in some ways, this is a porn setup, right? It's like, oh, I need you to come over and rescue my earring because it fell. And it's like, oh, that's such a lesbian thing to do, but it's such a porno thing to do. And
right.
Whenever she opens the door and Corky's there, she's like, oh my God, I didn't know he would call you here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She might as well be reading from a script like, oh no, I didn't think I'd bring you into this.
It's so good.
Oops, I dropped my pencil.
Let me bend over and get it.
Yeah.
Bend and snap.
God. Now we should note before Corky actually goes over to rescue said earring, she does because, as you said, Kay, she's fucking horned up. So she goes to the watering hole, which is the local lesbian bar. And
I love it.
This is important not only for depicting the fact like Corky is an out and proud lesbian. She's a member of the community because she's recognized by the bartender Sue, played by Mary Mara. But also it's like, here's authentically queer women. Like she's going out actively looking to get laid, but she's also getting clocked by this, frankly bitchy police officer who is trying to vag block her, where it's just like, this is not your woman, get out of here, what are you doing?
Fun fact too, the woman that Corky hits on is played by Susie Bright.
Yeah.
So obviously they wanted to do a lot more with the music for this film. They wanted to include like the girl from Ipanema and a couple other things, but they couldn't afford the rights to the musics. But in this song, like Aretha Franklin's "I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You" is what's playing.
It's like a backup.
So cute.
So Kessler says of including Susie Bright in this moment, it intertextually connects the film to actual lesbian culture and allows lesbian viewers to believe they are more fully experiencing the film by understanding the reference that would be lost on viewers who are not in the know. So you could watch this movie, not know that that's Susie Bright, plays totally fine. It's just like, oh, she tries to score with this woman and it doesn't work out for her. But Susie Bright was very well known at the time. Like, she's not just a sexpert, but she's the editor of a lesbian erotica magazine called On Our Backs. So if you were a lesbian in the know, you would know who Susie Bright was. And seeing her on screen, you're like, holy shit, this movie is authentically queer. Like, those are lesbians in this lesbian bar.
Could you imagine if William Friedkin had a Susie Bright for Cruising?
Exactly.
I mean, he must have, because there are some parts where I'm like, this feels pretty authentic, but like, that movie really, I love Cruising, but that movie really, really needed
it's a little
Susie
messy
Bright.
in parts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I appreciate it because it is unapologetically sexual. But I just think that it really helps when you have an authentic expert in a community being involved in the production.
I will say it's interesting because there's two film professors who have a featurette on this Blu-ray. They talk about how, look, yes, it was controversial to have this lesbian stuff at the time, blah blah blah, but it was still more accepted among more people, and they talk about this double standard between lesbian sex scenes and gay sex scenes because at the same time this movie would have come out, there was a lot of controversy around Melrose Place, which was going to feature a kiss between a character and his boyfriend, but they had to cut it out of the show because advertisers were threatening to pull out, even though, if anyone who's seen Melrose Place knows, the straight characters on that show were having orgiastic sex all the time.
Yeah. Good old Matt. Never got anything to fucking do on that show.
And then he dies.
Yeah, he had AIDS, and then he died.
No, he had a car wreck and he died.
But he did have AIDS, didn't he?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe he did. I don't know.
I know he died hear from all the Melrose fans now.
Honestly, he probably had. Sure. Gay in the 90s? Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
It did not end well, let's just say.
No. Okay, so after Corky strikes out, she drives home in her truck. So this is where we are leaning into stereotypes, but as you've often said, Tracy, there's a reason that stereotypes exist. It's because sometimes they are true. And I love that Bound plays on that fine line between, sometimes we lean into she is a butch dyke lesbian, and we're going to lean into that. And then sometimes it's like, but also we're going to subvert a lot of that too.
Okay, but to be clear, the entire relationship between Corky and Violet is a stereotype because they've known each other for 2 days before they drive off in the sunset together. So they are even lesbians personified.
And Violet calls out when she says something about a car. She goes truck, and she goes, "Of course,
of course,
of course, I knew it."
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even when she offers Corky a drink, Corky says, "I'll take a beer," and she says, "Of course,
of course."
Yeah. And you know what? My pleasure. I love when people say that. My pleasure.
I don't say I
you
can't.
Don't.
It's the word pleasure is just so inherently sexual to me that I can't say my pleasure in a non-sexual. I don't even say pleasure in sexual environments. I mean, I don't tell someone I'm going to pleasure you. I just think it sounds so wordy.
Let's expand upon that, Trace. What's going on there?
I mean,
what are your fears of intimacy here, Trace?
I'm not afraid of doing the pleasuring. The word pleasure just has a weird like mouth feel to it, if that makes any sense.
Oh my God, just hearing you say doing the pleasuring was like an uncomfortable moment. You sounded so unenthused.
Moving on.
And we're talking about your pleasure, not their pleasure. Again.
No, I get off on pleasuring others. I see, that is literally the only time I will say pleasure. I'll tell people I get off on pleasuring others. But if I'm with someone, I'm not just going to be like, can I pleasure you? I love pleasuring you. Oh, you know what, though? I think people say servicing now. I service you. I like servicing you.
Boy, I do not like the connotations of that.
Oh, yeah, see, I kind of do. I kind of do.
Maybe I'm not kinky enough. Maybe that's it.
I mean, I'm pretty vanilla, but yeah, I would prefer to say I want to service you instead of I want to pleasure you. I don't know.
Listeners, let us know. Jesus Christ. Okay. I was just trying to get to the part where I get to talk about the fact that Corky wears boys' briefs because I thought that was such a good touch.
I wrote in my notes, what are these whitey tighties?
They're amazing.
Oh, who cares
when
she's... Oh my God, when she's painting the ceiling, those fucking shoulders. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
So hot.
I mean, yeah, like the chemistry between the two women is great, but also have either actress look this good on screen? I mean, you could argue Gina Gershon looks amazing in Showgirls, but that movie isn't hers per se. Like, I don't know, there's something just so inherently sexual about both actresses in this film. I think that's what helps to bring me into the narrative is the fact that they're so into it and they're so alluring. I can't help but be smitten with them.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. Bride of Chucky.
Oh, yes.
I mean, Jennifer Tilly. They're both just gorgeous people. They're just like like godlike beings. Everything they do.
Yes. Okay, so this is when Corky goes to help out Violet the next day recover her earring. Of course, it's a lesbian text, so we're getting plenty of close-ups on hands and other disembodied body parts. So we're seeing a lot of Jennifer Tilly's thighs as she's standing there watching. But I do love that shot of Corky under the sink fixing this drain. Like,
oh, yeah.
Again, very wet.
It's so
very
hot.
handsy.
Like, I have never found any aspect of plumbing to be erotic or sexual or anything, but there's something about the way her hand unscrewing this fucking pipe with the water just pouring down. Oh God, I'm wet. I'm wet just thinking about it.
and she had the look on her face too. Like she knows exactly what she's like. This fucking bitch.
So here's the thing. Okay, no shade to either Tilly or Gershon if either one of them has had any work done. But Gina Gershon's lips are so distinctively shaped. And I don't know if by this point she had any work done. If she had, whatever. She looks so fucking good. Like, I just love the shape of her lips, though. Like, I'm every time she speaks, my eyes are locked into her mouth.
Well, they're both very, very expressive, right? And I think the camera it's doing a lot of medium shots in the sex scenes, but we are getting a lot of close-ups on lips, hands, different parts of their bodies. So I think that naturally it just arouses you, right?
I mean, it's this next scene when they start making out and she's like, it's that close up on their. Okay, this movie has the most sexual breathing in a sex scene that I've ever experienced, and it's like Corky's fingering Violet, and she's like, you know, oh, if I say no, will you take your hand away? No, then yes, I did this on purpose. But like the breathy, like Marilyn Monroe style way in which they are speaking to each other is so fucking hot.
Well, so you don't. There's no like dick. There's no like erect anything.
Exactly.
And so I think this film is all about showing the erotic, like the eroticism of all the other body parts and how erogenous zones for women are like all over. So the mouths and especially the hands as a sex organ.
Well, and how often do you have like female pleasure being the focus of a sex scene?
Right.
Or women that like actively seek sex and want sex, right?
And that's the end goal. Like, it's, I just want to get laid.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because if you think about it from a noir perspective, you have a lot of women who are driven by sex and power, but it's for a nefarious purpose. At this point, it's pretty evident that Violet is seducing Corky. We can assume that it's probably not going to be for good things, but yeah, and she admits it.
Isn't it obvious? I'm trying to seduce you.
I love someone being forthcoming in that. Honestly, like, just say, I'm trying to seduce you. I'm like, oh, panties out. Like, I'm done. Like, sold. I like honesty.
Yeah.
There you go. Honesty is pleasurable.
Serviceable.
Yeah, serviceable. Yeah, okay.
Honesty is servicing. But yeah, so Kay, you're absolutely right. One thing, like Tracy mentioned it, Kay, you just said it. It's important to note that not only are there no sex scenes involving men in this entire movie, but there's no emphasis on bulges or phalluses, or like there is no phallocentrism at all. So it's all female pleasure all the fucking time. And again, if you're thinking about this movie appealing both, like it's threading that really fine line where it's obviously appealing to sex fantasies of heterosexual men who might be coming for the crime thriller, but also to audiences who are turned on by women, where it's like, oh, you just get to engage in this lesbian fantasy where there are no men, there's no threat of a threesome at any point in this film. It's just ladies enjoying each other, often like in a way that feels very genuine and intimate.
I mean, like, I know a lot of gay men who actually, he might kill me for saying this. My husband likes watching like lesbian porn, and but it's not really my cup of tea. It's not something that I go to. But if I was ever going to change my mind, this movie's the one to do it, because I get hot watching this scene.
I did want to note too, if you pay attention to the fingers, right? Because this is Violet getting pleasured by Corky. And I know that fingernails can be an issue when it comes to lady parts. So it is significant that when we see Corky's hands, her fingernails are nicely trimmed up.
So I'm gonna get personal for a second, because I think it's relevant.
Do it.
So I've been transitioning for about 3 years now, and medically so all of my erogenous zones are completely different. And so when I've been with men, they see my body as one way, and they're like, oh, it's like me, this what feels good for me must feel, and it's like, no. That's not how it works. And so the first time I actually had a genuinely pleasurable, like overwhelmingly so experience was with a lesbian, because I was touched like a woman. They knew where the erogenous zones were, and it like blew my mind. Like for days, I was like, my body was like sex drunk, and it was because women know like what feels good and how it is inherently different than touching a man.
Well, I guess so. I'm curious, and again, you can tell me to answer this question, but like, so like, is it like do you find yourself rediscovering not just your body, but like those erogenous zones? So, like when you're having solo time, let's say, which is my euphemism for masturbating.
Oh, really?
No, but have you had a time where you're like masturbating and you're like, oh my God, you touch a certain part of your body, like, oh, that's never done anything for me before, but holy shit, like, wow, it really hit the spot.
Yeah, it's completely different. And like what I tell men is like, I don't have a dick, I have a clit. I have a swollen clit. Okay, does that help? And if you don't,
a swollen clit.
Yeah, I'm like, if you can't pleasure me thinking it that way, that's you have a different problem. That's not me being trans. You have another problem pleasuring.
Well, but I guess though, okay, I mean, like, not to like put your whole sex life out there, but I mean, like, okay, so you say like the lesbians, like you've had really good sexual encounters with lesbians, but like, I guess with a gay man, like, have you had a sexual encounter with a gay man who has never been with a woman, where it's maybe like you gotta educate them a little bit, yeah.
Oh. No, I mean, I'm doing way more education now than I ever had.
Right.
Like,
that's how you know you're a woman, because you're doing all the sex education with men.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's like, let's just cut to the chase. Like, I'm just going to tell you exactly what to do because I ain't got time for you to figure it out.
Honestly, sometimes even, I mean, like, admittedly, I only really like have sex with gay men, but it's like, sometimes I'm just like, just tell me what you want, dude. Like, maybe it like ruins the mystique around sexuality. And I'm like, no, just tell me what you want and I'll fucking do it.
Yeah. Well, honestly, like the hottest, I can't believe it. Okay. I mean, I'm totally comfortable with this. I hope your listeners are okay with it. But when I was fooling around with this person and it was starting to get hot and heavy, like she took my pants off and then she was like, fair warning, I have zero experience with cock. And I was like, well, that's great because I don't have one. And then I took her hand and like showed her what to do with my hand. That was like so sexy. And then that's when it clicked for, oh, okay. This is.
I know what to do.
I got
okay,
it.
see,
got
no,
it.
like, no, that to me is hot. I mean, for me, like, again, like, I feel like there's so much pressure on sexuality and like what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. For me, some of the hottest sex comes from like, again, like the first time you're with someone and you are both learning each other's bodies, but without the expectation of you should already know what to do. It's like, no, every body is different. Like, hey, let me show you what to do. Let me tell you what to do. That to me, like that learning together is what makes sex hot. But I know that not everyone agrees with that, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it comes down to transparency. It's a form of transparency.
Yes.
It's like, let's cut through the bullshit. And it's like, all right, we're already naked. Like, well, let's not pretend I mean, unless, you know, we're role playing. But like, let's
like,
just get to the chase.
I was with a guy once who was like, he literally didn't like, I mean, he didn't mind having his dick touched, but he was very much a nipple person. So he didn't want me to just blow him or just give him a hand job. He was like, no, you need to be on my nipple. You need to get
nipple action in there.
Literally, whether you're pinching my nipple or you're sucking my nipple, that is your first priority. And then you can stroke me while you're doing that. And that's it. Yep. But like, don't just stroke me. Don't just blow me. And so it's like, hey, I never would have guessed that. So thank you for telling me.
I think that part of it is that we've been conditioned as people to not be expressive about sex because, I mean, especially in North America, it's all taboo, right? Like, oh, we should be shamed for wanting to have pleasure. Like, it's a dirty thing. And especially for us as queer people, it's like, oh, well, you're not even trying to procreate, so you're just in it for the pleasure. And it's like, yeah, I am. That's literally why I'm doing this. But if you're not communicating what's pleasurable, trace the word. If you're not communicating to people what is turning you on, how the fuck do you expect them to figure that out? Like, sure, if you're willing to let them explore all over your body and do a bunch of things you don't get turned on by, maybe that's part of your kink. But apart from that, like, be specific. Help people out. If you want to have a good encounter, give them instructions.
That's the thing. I mean, like a window into my fucking brain and mindset and sex life. But like, yeah, I have been with people who are like, don't talk. Like, that's not sexy. And I'm like, okay, but I like to actually conversate. Like, when we're navigating these avenues during especially a first sexual encounter, I find that very hot. But I have been with people who are like, shut up. Don't talk. Don't do that.
See, sometimes I get really chatty because I want them to shut up.
It's fun. No, I think, to me, that's very sexy. And like you said, the word you use, transparency. Like, transparency to me is so fucking hot.
I mean, honestly, not to shame anybody who may have said that in the past, Trace, but anybody who says, I don't want to hear you talk, that sounds like they're only in it for themselves.
Entirely possible, honestly. Although my husband may or may not have told me that some of our first sexual encounters.
Well, that's probably just Ari also being like, you never shut the fuck up. How about you put your mouth to work?
Little column A, little column B.
Oh, I love this. It's like Howard Stern all of a sudden.
And you are not the father.
These are my favorite episodes, honestly. It's fine. We're good.
Yeah, and it is relevant.
It's true. We were talking about a sex scene, folks.
But
yeah.
Moving on past this sex scene.
Yes, okay. We belabored the point long enough. We'll go back to the regular film. So this sex scene, very hot. Alas, it is interrupted because Caesar comes home before Violet can reciprocate with Corky. So there's this delicious moment where, of course, Caesar is threatened by the fact that Violet is in the dark with someone, but then he's reassured because it's another woman, so he doesn't have to worry about it. And you're just like, fucking idiot.
This line, well, Bianchini hired you, so you must be pretty good with your hands. But I'm
Also, it's fucking dark in here.
I know.
I love his delivery. He's
Joey Pants.
So here's the
so
thing.
good.
Pantaleano is very much a co-lead in this film. Like, it is the Tilly Gershon show, but truthfully, I even think Pantaleano might have more screen time than Gershon. And
Possibly.
he is just a delight. I mean, this is his first lead role in a film, and he is a delight. I love him in this movie.
Well, and he kept trying to get more screen time. He was jealous of all the sexy time between Gina and Tilly. That he kept trying to find ways to like drop like when he is in his towel. That was his idea. He's like, I want to be naked too.
Oh, yeah, and the Wachowskis were like, "What are you doing? No one wants to see that."
Yeah. Literally nobody. This is a no dong show. So the other reason that Caesar is reassured by Corky's presence is because he acknowledges that she is a con. So everyone is able to identify her background right away. I don't think she's really trying to hide it, but the fact that these are all not great people, right? Like, we're all involved in crime of some kind. So he encourages her to take a payout so he doesn't have to worry about her, and then sends her home. And I love the moment where she goes back to the apartment and she's about to wash her hand and she just takes a look at it like, yeah, those fingers have been places.
I'm surprised she didn't just sniff it.
Well, she's rubbing her fingers together.
She is, yeah. I mean, I can't help but flash forward to the opening episode of Sense8 when the Wachowskis not just have greater carte blanche, but I think are far more comfortable with expressing female sexuality, like to an even greater degree, because the introduction of Jamie Clayton's character is her and her girlfriend basically going at each other with a dildo, and the dildo like falls out and onto the ground, and you can see like wetness on the dildo. It's great. You're just like, yeah, this is the show we're making. But like, you have to go through Bound to get to Sense8.
Does it end definitively? Because I know it was canceled.
It does. They got a wraparound movie.
Okay, you know what? Maybe I'll put that on my list. Who knows?
And I mean, the story is very meandering to the point, like, I know some people, when they look at The Matrix Reloaded, they look at that 10-minute rave sequence that opens that second film, and they're just like, oh, it's so indulgent, it doesn't advance the plot or whatever. There's large portions of Sense8 that feel that way, where you want them to be more narrative driven or more action, and it's contemplative, it's meditative, and in some ways it's very risky in that way, but I can tell you that the queer love stories are the heart and soul of that fucking show.
All right.
Well, one thing of note in comparison to Bound is that when they made Bound and the Matrix films, it was extremely planned out, like every detail, because they said that made them feel really confident. Once they were into production, they were like, oh, we know exactly what to do. There was just like a reliant, it just made them feel more confident and comfortable. And later they became more improvisational, and they wanted their directing to reflect their writing, and it was more of like organized chaos. And so a lot of Sense8 was improv.
I feel like you can see that. That makes perfect sense.
Well, I have yet to see The Matrix Revolutions, but I am mighty curious because I know that Lana is the sole director of that one, as opposed to the Wachowskis together. But I've also heard very mixed things about that film, so I'm interested to see like how it comes across.
I love it, and I guess I would say it is looser You know, there's a little more looser, but it's still like a Matrix film. Kind of, it'd be hard to make a show a production at that level work without having a heavy hand at what's going on. But it does feel a little looser than the previous three.
It does, yeah. I would say it feels looser and a different kind of confident again.
Well, it's yet another film of the Wachowskis that's like giving a middle finger to the studio system.
Oh boy, is it ever. It's amazing in that way. I really liked it, Trace. I would strongly recommend it.
No, I mean, I've had it on my deck for like ever. I've just never been like, oh, because yes. I will watch it one of these days.
Also, Keanu and Carrie Ann have like really good chemistry after all that time.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
And Keanu's like lesbian adjacent.
He kind of is. Okay, so afterwards, Violet ends up tracking Corky down in the truck, and she apologizes for what she didn't get to do, aka she didn't get to reciprocate on the sex act. This is when we wipe up to the women already in bed, and we get the second, longer, more substantial sex scene.
20 minutes into this movie, by the way.
I remembered it coming so much later.
Yeah, no, this movie does not fuck around. We are in it to win it.
So I'm not going to repeat too much of what Kessler has already said about, you know, the medium shots, the lack of men and phallocentric objects and so on. But again, just, you know, really focusing on how the spectator can actually be present as an almost active third participant due to the medium shots and the way that it's filmed. And then, yes, folks, think of the number of times you have seen a sex scene that takes place in like one tracking shot uninterrupted by editing. It's not just difficult to film, but it also creates a completely different sensory experience.
Yeah, like you seriously feel like you're there.
And it's hot. It is so hot.
The sweat you can see pooling on Gershon's like belly is, oh God.
Yeah, and the like smeared lipstick and Jennifer Tilly, who's high femme, and she's fucking railing her.
That breathing. The breathing is intensifying. Like, honestly, it really feels like she made Gershon come. Like, that's really how it feels like watching this film.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because we are ending the month with a very queer, very sex-heavy film, so almost a counterpoint to this. And that movie actually has unsimulated sex scenes. I would argue you could look at Bound and be confused as to whether or not these two women fucked each other.
Especially in that unrated cut, which again, it's mere seconds of additional footage. But I mean, there's that shot where it's Tilly's hand on Gershon's crotch, and I'm like, I feel like she's actually fingering her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and because they're both women, for them, that meant that they could be a lot more comfortable with each other than if they were doing a sex scene with a man, that they were more supportive of each other because of that sort of vulnerability. And so they were able to say, like, okay, when you grab my boob, like hold it like this so it looks more plump, or like I have cellulite on my thigh here, so make sure you when you touch me, cover the cellulite on my thigh. And they just were really looking out for each other in that way. It's really sweet.
Honestly, I want just to have a sex scene. I'm sorry, I want to have sex like that. Hey, can you just hold my butt up to hide my cellulite?
Oh my God.
You can, Trace. Nothing's stopping you.
I don't. Fuck it. Next time I do it, I will. Absolutely.
Trace is going to be like, this isn't actually turning me on. It's just helping my self-esteem.
Yes.
So I'm trying to be transparent about my pleasure.
Honestly, I think that's sexy. Again, as long as you are making someone feel beter about themselves, it doesn't have to necessarily be like a bodily pleasurable thing where it's like, oh, like I'm jacking you off, I'm flicking your clit or whatever the fuck. It's just a... No.
This is how you know Trace has never had sex with a woman.
I don't even just flick the clit. I'm sorry, but but just like, again, if it's something simple with someone's like, oh, I'm insecure about this. How do I make you feel better about that?
Right.
That's something that's pleasurable. Maybe not physically pleasurable, but it's emotionally or mentally pleasurable. And so again, that goes into my mindset when I'm in bed with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Stimulating.
Yes.
There is a mental game to having sex with people. Like, it's not just a physical thing. It's about emotional connectivity. It's about thinking about your partner and being present and aware of what they're looking for.
I think game implies that someone needs to win. You know me. So I'm going to say it's a mental tete-a-tete.
Yes. A French word for the same concept.
It sounds better.
a mental undertaking.
Sure. Yes.
Oh my God.
A playful banter.
Jesus Christ. We sound like we're describing an X-Men movie plot right now.
Oh my God.
So, in case you didn't know it was good, Corky finishes this by saying, "I can see again."
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I love that line.
The next day, she's like basically tap dancing. Like she's so.
Oh,
she's like,
okay.
yes.
And the second big music cue. So she gets out of her truck, and Ray Charles's "Hallelujah, I Love Her So" is playing over this. It is so, again, it's just so funny. It's so playful. It's so frivolous. I love all of this.
Right. And like, yeah, the day after you get laid, you're like, oof, all right, let's do this.
Well, and we can also assume by the way the narrative sets it up that she is only just out of jail. So she hasn't had sex in a while unless she presumably had it while she was on the inside.
Which I find it really hard to believe she wouldn't have fucked someone on the inside.
I mean, is it Orange is the New Black? We don't know.
Look, you gotta establish dominance early on when you're in jail.
Okay, so unfortunately things are going to start taking a darker turn because Corky observes Shelley, who is played by Barry Keoghan, arriving. He will fuck Violet, which makes Corky very upset, and she even questions whether Violet is an authentic or real lesbian. And I think that this is a really vitally important, not just because we're setting up trust issues between the two women, but I'm not going to lie, even in the day and age of our Lord 2023, this conversation of, oh, well, if you fuck this man, then you can't be a lesbian, or I'm questioning your sexuality.
Yeah.
A, it's by erasure, but also B, it's like, you don't get to tell people what their sexuality is, Corky.
Well, sexual fluidity wasn't as accepted on either side of the spectrum, queer or straight, at this time. And so, but I get it, right? I mean, like, I think there's something to be said about a community, like a queer community, that's been marginalized. And I guess by queer, I mean either explicitly gay or explicitly lesbian, where, I mean, you know, there's like not a jealousy, but kind of a thing where it's like, oh, if you're bisexual or pansexual or whatever, like you can quote unquote pass for straight if you want to, because you have a straight side of your life. And I'm mad about that. I'm jealous of that. I'm angry about that because I don't have that quote unquote luxury. So I agree. I find this conversation very fascinating because it also adds to Violet's character, right? It's not only is she trustworthy enough as a partner in crime, but is she trustworthy as a romantic partner because she may not be a quote unquote authentic or real lesbian.
Yeah. And of course, this is dovetailing into conversations about things like sex work and what Violet has had to do to survive. You know, she says that everybody's got prices that they need to pay. So Violet isn't with Caesar presumably because she loves him or wants to be with him. Right. It's like she has basically found herself in with the mob or the mafia. So these are some of the things that she has to do until she can safely find a way out. Hence a $2 million heist.
Oh, I just want to point out when they have that little fight and she's like, I think you should go. And like, good for Violet. I love how Violet advocates for herself.
Yes.
And then on her way out, she goes,
trying to steal anything on their way out.
Yeah, try not to steal anything on your way out. It's like, fuck,
so
you're
mean.
so hot, Violet.
It's also just like, I love how she says, oh, that's not sex. Like, but it is literally sex, but you view it as work. You distinguish work and sex, even if if your work is sex, are two very different things.
It's almost like it's a tete-a-tete or something.
Right.
Yep.
Well, also with the theme of like being bound or in the closet or being restricted by expectations or gender roles or whatever. It's like Violet's very much trapped in her situation, and she's trapped with Caesar, and she's trapped in sex work to survive. And she's like, no, this is the one thing I'm choosing is to be intimate with you, and you're giving me shit.
And that's why I think it's really interesting / funny that Corky is the one that's in the literal closet for this film.
Right. But I think it's important because we start the film with Corky, and you could almost say we're with her. It's from her perspective. And as a result, we don't trust Violet in these moments, right? We don't know whether she's telling the truth. So I think it's important that Corky gets sidelined in her own apartment and then later in the closet, so that we have the time with Violet to understand, okay, she is actually in this for Corky as well.
Yeah, and Corky, even she's bound by her own expectations of Violet. Like, you know,
yes,
for sure.
She's having these sort of like basic thoughts of sexuality, and and it's about like just finding a way to be free together.
It's just so beautiful.
It really
I mean,
is.
we should know, we don't know all of Corky's backstory, but it will be revealed that the reason she went to prison is because she was betrayed by her female lover. So she already had trust issues. So I think this kind of wrinkle in Violet's sexuality from Corky's point of view is a red flag of, oh, you know, she's fucking hot. She gives great finger, but also I don't want to go back to prison.
Yeah.
Hand, there's more than a finger going in there.
Sorry, there we go. Yeah, a full wrist. Okay, so let's introduce another new character. It's time for Psycho Fuck Johnny, who is played by who else but Christopher Maloney, to come in.
Christopher Bubblebutt Maloney.
Oh my god, this man. A true queer ally for everything Wet Hot American Summer, and then, anytime he wears a pair of pants.
This whole film is like ally central.
Truly. So Shelley is also back because it's revealed, Shelley has committed a bit of an infraction, a bit of a no-no, and he needs to be badly beaten in the bathroom. So this is a really fun transition where we have Corky listening on her side in the bathroom, and then we just cut to what looks to be the exact same toilet, except it's on the flip side and it's filling with blood.
I also love, like, I mean, it's basically a Jurassic Park homage, right?
No, but...
Well,
I think it is. Come on, the rippling of the toilet on Corky's end. Come on.
That's how water works.
I mean, I'm just saying, this came out 2 years after Jurassic Park. If it came out today, I might be like, yeah, sure, whatever. But, like, come on. They were like, that's a good idea.
You know what? Write to the Wachowskis and ask them.
Also, more camp humor, though. Again, all this shit's happening, and, Violet's all upset, and Caesar's response is, what? I didn't use a good towel.
Yeah, so also on the scene we have Mickey, who is played by John Ryan, and he's the one who seems most aware of Violet's feelings. So Johnny is lewd, he's gross, he's chauvinistic. Caesar is somewhere in the middle, and then Mickey seems like the nice one.
Except
I
think, I mean, I'm not an expert in gangster mafia movies, but I feel like the general trope is the one who's the most calm, cool, and collected is usually the most dangerous and violent one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Mickey is the one we need to be afraid of.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Although in the end, it's like basically revealed that he's in love with Violet.
Mm-hmm. Well, everyone is in love with Violet, which I think is part of the film's way of saying, yeah, she's really fucking hot, but also, can you trust her? Because she could just be playing all of these people.
Right.
And spoiler alert, she is, except for one.
Well, and in a way, she's playing, it may have been her intention at first to play Corky, because she is deliberately trying to seduce her.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have that kind of insight. I'm thankful that there's no voiceover in this movie, because
or flashbacks even, because there was a thing where they wanted to flashback at one point to Shelley's actual murder, and the Wachowskis were like, no,
it's not necessary.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Also, we don't have money for that. Okay, so we move to the bar where the women are talking about what's just happened, that Shelley has effectively lost a finger, and this is where Violet dangles that $2 million payday, and Corky is only hearing, I'm sorry, you want to steal a bunch of money from the mafia?
Well,
are you fucking kidding me?
But what I love, though, is, okay, I mean, again, like, I saw this movie the first time, at least 10 years ago, but I don't know if walking into this that you're essentially getting a caper heist movie. Mm-hmm. So I love that then the movie almost doesn't switch genres, but it switches gears to become this type of film. And then I'm kind of re-excited all over again to be like, oh, yeah, what's the puzzle we're going to get ourselves into now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's doing a lot of classic heist movie stuff, right? It's okay, we get the gang together. In this case, there's only two of them, but then we have to go through the plan and think about what happens if this happens and make sure you do this. And it's not flashy in the way that we might expect an Ocean's 11 film to be, but it definitely has its own sense of style. And I love the way that it's blurring heist, erotic thriller, and noir.
That's what the Wachowski's entire idea was going into this, right? Like, let's take these genre conventions and fuck them up.
And it's like so important to. I love it's such a trope to go, okay, and this is how it's going to go down. And they have to show it from start to finish because once you know the way it's supposed to go down, when when the first thing goes wrong, you're like, oh, fuck. They're fucked.
Yeah.
How did they?
Well, that's kind of what I like about, again, the editing in these particular sequences. And I kind of touched on this last week with A Simple Favor, where it's like, oh, like we have a character that's telling us a lie, but the editing is actually showing us they are lying while the other character doesn't know. Whereas in this moment, it's like, okay, we're getting the rundown of their plan while seeing it acted out. But while you're watching, you're kind of like, wait, is this actually happening? Or is this what they are envisioning is going to happen? Of course, the reality is it is actually happening because we don't have time to fucking waste. And then once things start to go wrong, that's when we actually are like in real time without the voiceover.
Right. Yeah.
And I love how deceptively simple this plan is, right? So it's $2 million. It comes back to Violet and Caesar's apartment after Shelley gets whacked and Caesar is covered in money. We've got to clean the money, hang it up to dry. And then Gino, who is eventually revealed to be Johnny's father, but Gino, who is played by Richard C. Serafian, he's the head of the Marzoni crime family. So basically, he's going to show up, pick up the money, but it's a big deal for him to come to Violet and Caesar's house. So things have to be exact. And then we know that we can tweak something to fuck up Caesar, and that'll be enough of a distraction. So,
well, the plan would have gone perfectly, but it's when someone attacks Caesar's masculinity, that's when he keeps making the thing. He does the thing that fucks it all up.
Okay, wait, but Kay, I'm glad that you mentioned that, though, because what we've already seen in the scene where Caesar is washing the money, ironing the money, hanging it up, we're already playing with gender roles there, because, again, typically, the wife is the one who launders things, and in this case, it's Caesar. He's doing the woman's work.
Yeah.
I mean, we will revert back, so it's not like okay, so Caesar is always the woman, quote unquote.
Oh, sure.
Because, of course, he expects Violet to dress a certain way when Gino comes. We need to make sure that Violet has booze ready. So when she drops the bottle of booze that Gino likes to drink, that's what sets the plan in motion. That's the distraction for her to, quote unquote, leave to go get more, at which point Corky will sneak in and she will swap out the money from the briefcase. So that's the simple version of the plan. But as Kay, you alluded to, it doesn't quite work because Caesar suspects that Johnny is actually fucking Violet because everybody loves Violet and Johnny is a fuck. So that means that he doesn't want to let her out of his sight because originally he was supposed to run. He was going to say, oh, Johnny's taking the money, but I can't go after Johnny because he's Gino's son, which means I need to go on the run, and then he would take all the heat, and the women would escape. And of course, that doesn't happen, so now we have to go into, what, like plan E, plan F?
It's kind of wild. And again, that's the thing where I love about this movie is like you think, okay, well, it's going to go this way. And as any heist movie should tell you,
right,
it's never going to go the way they plan it out. But again, like things kind of fuck up. It just... I remember watching this the first time. I was like, oh, this is not going in the way I was expecting it to go. And constantly worried that one or both of our lead ladies was going to die.
Right.
Because Violet's basically held hostage. You know, she's able to do these like very seemingly minor things to influence what happens. But she, for the most part, she's just kind of like watching Caesar unravel.
So, Joe, you messaged me last night, and you mentioned like how you had, because I think anyone walking into this, you're gonna say, okay, this is the Violet and Corky show, and unfortunately, question mark, quote unquote, I don't know, that is not the case. Much of the second act of this movie is the Violet and Caesar show.
Yes.
So I'm curious, Joe. You said you kind of lose interest once Corky is out of the picture for the second act. Genuine question. Do you think that comes from your expectations, or is it an actual fault of the movie in your eyes? Or walk us through that.
It's tricky, right? Because as you said, in any kind of heist movie, you can anticipate that things aren't going to go to plan. That's where the narrative enjoyment comes from, is, oh, when things fall apart, how does everybody react? How do we get out of it? It's more that it's not like Corky is not even involved in any of this. Right. So it's enjoyable because we've got folks like Chris Maloney acting like an asshole, and we get to watch, as you said, Kay, Caesar just completely unravel. And Joey Pants is great in this role, and he is very compelling to watch as he becomes more paranoid, and he's far more reactive. Like, I did not expect him to just randomly shoot Gino and Johnny. I thought that was going to be the end of the movie, and then it's like, wait, there's a whole other act to come.
Yeah,
but I think for me it's because the chemistry between the two women is so dynamic, and I naturally gravitate towards strong, interesting female characters. Getting rid of Corky and then barely even touching on her for this long stretch is really hard. It is kind of like a Simple Favor, where I miss the relationship between the women, because to me that's the most exciting part.
Yeah. No, I don't even disagree with you, and I can't fault you for that. I mean, look, do I want more Gina Gershon, Jennifer Tilly screen time in this movie? Absolutely.
Sure. It's just not what the film is doing.
It's not. I would argue it's maybe more egregious than A Simple Favor, even though I've given both of those films 4.5 stars out of 5. but I don't mind it as much here, because it still at least feels like Corky is involved, even if she's not on screen for much of this time.
Right. Because we so firmly establish the way that the building is set up, and how Corky is probably listening to all of this, but she's a little bit helpless in the moment.
And I think it's a very key moment when they go to Johnny's house to look for the money. And Corky could just run. She's got the cash.
Yep.
And she, I think it's like a huge moment for the character to be like, no, like, Violet's my girl, and I'm gonna figure this out, and I'm not taking the money without her.
But that's the thing, right? Because the whole time, Violet is wondering, oh my god, like, what if we get back and Corky is just gone with the money? Because that's a very... Honestly, it's interesting, because both of these... God, watching it the first time, you're kind of like, okay, I feel like I know these characters. I feel like that they do genuinely feel this way about each other. But I've seen this type of movie before. That is not always the case. And so you have... Like, even though the film presents Corky as the one who should be the most worried, because Violet is kind of the enigma of the scenario,
right? This
moment gives you the Violet side, where it's like, oh shit, like, she really should be worried, because Corky could just hightail it out of here.
Yeah. I find this movie very interesting in that regard, because every time I've watched it, which again, it's just a couple of times, I don't trust Violet to stay true to her word. But I always trust Corky. Like, I never for one moment believe that Corky will run off with the money and leave Violet to Caesar's whims. But I think it's just because we start the story with Corky and not Violet. Like, if it was reversed, I think I would feel differently.
That's so interesting. I feel the other way.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think just because you see how Violet is trapped in her situation, and I feel like my empathy is always more with her, because Corky in a way has freedom. You know what I mean? She's much more confident in who she is, and she's kind of has this lifestyle where she can just kind of roll with the punches. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I just identify with Violet more, but it seemed to me that, like, Corky did time. She's maybe a little more self-serving or able and willing to do what she needs to do to help herself out first and foremost.
I mean, the other amusing thing about this film, and I'd be curious to hear from straight listeners about this, but because these two women are queer, I'm rooting for them regardless. Like, even if one of them fucked the other one over, I would still be cheering for both of them. And I'd just be curious to know is that my implicit queer empathy, where I want queers to come out on top, particularly against people like Caesar and Johnny, where you're just like, ugh, you're a chauvinist, you're a fucking pig, I don't like you kind of deal.
Well, it's almost like a fairy tale, because at no point do I ever believe it's going to end the way it does, because where else in cinema history do we get that ending to Lily's point?
And not in the 90s.
Well, and that's why Thelma and Louise is brought up so much. It's like, this is the closest you had to a mainstream lesbian relationship. Again, maybe, outside of Fried Green Tomatoes, but one of them does die in that movie. Mm-hmm. But, Thelma and Louise ends with them driving off a cliff.
Right, they die. For them, that's their own version. They did it on their own terms, at least. But it's like Violet and Corky almost get like a white picket fence. They have like the happiest of endings.
That's your subversion right there. On queer films and just noir films.
Yeah, I mean, it's another subversion, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like we then move into this next stage where, the cops have come, but we managed to convince them nothing was happening. We send them away. And it seems like, okay, all we now have to do is put our attention onto Caesar, get him to finally fucking run, and then we'll be scot-free. The problem is that Violet calls Corky a second time, and Caesar catches her. And then he knows, if I hit the redial button, I can hear the phone ringing on the other side of this thin wall.
So it's really fun listening to them on the commentary talk about this scene, because so apparently when they were screening this originally, in primarily lesbian audiences, this obviously got a huge audience reaction. The Wachowskis actually chose not to ever rewatch this film again until doing the commentary, because they knew that no experience would match one of these screenings in San Francisco.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no, and so it's the same way you're watching Violet on the phone. You're like, oh my God, bitch, get off the phone. He's going to walk in the room. Because this is the second time they've had a phone call. And then, not only is it okay, this is of course we get the phone, the camera doing the loop in the phone cord, but Corky keeps letting the phone ring. And apparently in the theater, you have people screaming, rip out the cord! Rip it out!
They both make the dumbest decision. Violet, what the fuck are you doing? Why would you call Corky? And Corky oh my God, it's so enraging.
Well, but it's important though, because Violet called Corky because this is when she's like, oh, is she still there? Because we just got back from trashing Johnny's apartment. So I understand it. It is a dunderheaded decision, but I understand it.
Great word.
We should also note that there is that fantastic scene moments earlier where the two women put their hands on either side of the wall and the camera goes over the wall so we can see the other one do it. And it's not just, great filmmaking and very pleasurable to watch, but it tells you so much about the nature of the relationship.
It's again, because we've talked about the eroticism so much of how sexy this is, but that's where the romance comes in. You want these two women to be together because they are just it's been 2 fucking days, but who cares? They sing perfect for each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's so tender. It's just all this brutality. It's just there's this vulnerability and this tenderness between them that prevails. It's so sweet.
Yes, absolutely. So, unfortunately, Caesar has figured out that Violet is not trustworthy. He's pretty sure that it's Corky, so he more or less lures her back into the apartment. He gets the upper hand, and now we're more or less back to where the film began, because remember our stupid in media res opening.
You may be wondering how I got into this situation.
More or less. I mean, here's the thing. Even something like that is such a quintessentially, this is noir, right? How did we get here? Let me tell you a story. So I can't hate it that much. It's a pet peeve when so many films and TV shows do it.
I think it would be, maybe it would be better for you if the subversion of this trope would be, how she got into the scenario is not how you think she would get into the scenario. But it is. It's just, Caesar put her in there. There you go. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason that she's in the closet is because we have to go back to play acting because, oh shit, we called Mickey and he's looking for Johnny. So he's on his way over and now we have to go back through a second round of charades. That means that Caesar has to clean all the blood off him and get dressed in a towel, and we're pretending Violet and I were just fucking in the shower. That's why we took so long to answer the doorbell and all this other stuff. And this is really Joey Pants' time to shine, where he's trying to not look guilty. He's so paranoid that Mickey is going to be able to lockpick this briefcase and realize there's no $2 million in there. And meanwhile, he's got Violet calling him on the fucking phone being like, pretend it's Gino and also give me half the money.
This is, okay, like, even if you thought for a second, oh, maybe Violet isn't like that good at all this is when you're kind of like, oh shit, bitch is in control.
She's really good at this.
I also like whenever like he tells Mickey like, oh yeah, she was gonna relax me in the shower. Mickey's just like, that Violet is one nice lady. But like you have Violet that's like, listen, bitch, this is how it's gonna work. Tell me you understand. And you just have Pantaleono's delivery of, yes, I understand.
Now he's the one reading from the cue card, right? Yes, I understand. Yes, I will get rid of Mickey. Yeah.
She'd make a great ghost face. Like
that's the thing is like the ebbs and flows and like the pacing of the movie. Like there's very few ebbs. Is the ebb the downward one? Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yes.
No, but as soon as you think it's like, okay, well, where else is this gonna go? This shit kind of happens, and you're like, fuck, I'm like really amped up again.
Yes, it gets you right back into it. Like for me, this is all gold stuff because I kind of didn't expect to see Mickey again, or I thought we were going to get some kind of wild shootout, and this feels more playful. This is more mastermind, and I think it's in part because we do get to see again a different side of Violet where she is so firmly in control.
Yeah, 100%.
So, just like the cops, we managed to finally eventually convince Mickey to leave. It's a minor miracle, but then we're right back where we started. Caesar is back in control because he's got the gun. He's got both women at gunpoint, but this is where Violet makes a break for it. So she runs down the hall, down the stairs. Caesar has to chase her. Corky manages to free herself using said clippers. And then it's about double backing to Corky's apartment. We've already discovered that's where the money is.
Okay, but wait. Okay, so Violet, running down these stairs, she gets to the elevator. There's a really cute moment from Jennifer Tilly when Pantaleano like gets down the stairs and he's in the hallway and he turns and he sees Violet in the elevator. Jennifer Tilly does this little hop.
Yeah.
But then she calls Mickey. This is probably my favorite like comedic beat in the movie. It's when she calls Mickey and she's like, "Oh my god, Mickey! Oh my god, he tried to get me!" And then she's like, "Oh my god, he's coming!" And she hangs up, and her demeanor changes because she's like, "Oh, that was just an act." Yeah.
Performance is
Oscar.
Over. I can just revert back to
give
normal.
her the Oscar.
It's so good. Like Tilly is on fire in all of these scenes.
I mean, I also think that this is designed just in case you thought, okay, the women are good. All we have to do is get out of this situation, get away from Caesar. Everything Violet is doing is cueing us to say, ooh, but is she trustworthy? Because look at how easily she slips in and out of performance mode. How do we know she hasn't been doing this to Corky as well?
Yeah.
So we end up back in Corky's apartment. The money is there, but also like it's been moved because Corky has managed to free herself. Joey Pants is in there, but he doesn't have a gun anymore. Both the women have guns.
Okay.
And we take turns lighting this motherfucker up.
It's like a half a second shot, but the shot of the gun rolling and twirling through the paint and spraying like almost like watercoloring paint across the floor is possibly one of my favorite shots in cinema history. I love the way this looks.
Well, and it echoes the blood in the toilet. Like it's just like the blood contrasts with the white.
That overhead shot, they shoot his ass and just blood all over this white ass paint. It's so, oh god, this it does suck though because the moment where she kills him, where she's like, "Caesar, you don't know shit," that's a trailer moment.
Oh no, is it?
Yeah, if you watch the trailer, it's like the end of the trailer where he's like, "I know you," and she's like, "You don't know shit," and then she pulls the trigger, but then the gun sound happens and it cuts to the title card, "Bound, coming soon to a theater near you."
Yeah.
Honestly, trailer people.
Yeah, I know. It's such a mafioso death too. You know what I mean? It's like something
it truly is.
It's just so dramatic.
The score swelling for all of this. I mean, the score, it's a great score, but it really kicks in during all of these climactic moments.
Yeah. It's the horse head in the bed, and then it's Joey Pants' blood in the white paint. So basically that is the end of Caesar. So we just have to patch things up with Mickey, make our excuses to leave the mafia behind. Mickey is totally like, you know what? I'm going to find Caesar. I'll track him down. Don't you worry. You're sweet. You're cute. And Violet's like, cool, I'm going to go fuck my girlfriend in her brand new truck that we bought with that $2 million. Peace out, movie. Happy ending for these lesbians.
She's a lady. Whoa, whoa, whoa. She's a lady. It's so, like, just the glee. Glee is the only way to describe how I feel watching this movie. It's just so much fun.
Absolutely. And especially the end. You're just like, oh, fucking good for them. It's so nice.
Because you don't expect it, right? I mean, like, look, we've talked plenty on this podcast about, like, queer stories. And, like, you know, usually they don't, especially this time period, they don't always end happily.
No, bury your gays.
It's so unexpected. It's like, oh, they get away with it. They're $2 million richer. I hope they invested it well and they're still living well today. But I will say this, though. So apparently they have tried to make a Bound sequel several times. But here's the thing. When I say they, I don't mean the Wachowskis. And scripts. Like Gina, Gershon, and Jennifer Tilly have been handed a script for Bound 2 in the past. But their first question is, are the Wachowskis involved? And the second they are told no, they're like, okay, we're not doing this.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I could also see this getting the Wild Things treatment, you know, where they just buy the rights to the title and they do like direct to VOD. Like,
I'm surprised they didn't do that, actually.
Yeah, because they could just do other lesbians. You know, they could just
other lesbians are all the same.
in name only. You know what I mean? And just be like, here's another lesbian thriller.
But here's the thing. If this movie had have done well, I think we probably would have gone that route, right? Because this is 2 years before Wild Things. Like, this absolutely would have been DTV sequels, 2 or 3 of them, right? But I think because it didn't do well, and then it gains a cult audience, it's like, oh, well, the timing is lost. So now it's just going to be cheap cash-ins, but they know that the audience won't respect them. So maybe that's why no one's pulled the trigger.
And that's why I implore y'all, if you have made it this far in this episode and you have not seen this film, and if you just know this
what the fuck are you doing?
Well, again, the thing is, I still feel like some people just think of this as, oh yeah, it's that lesbian movie with Gina Gershon and Jennifer Tilly. And again, it is that, but it's so much more than that. Like, give this movie a watch. Good Lord.
Well, like Roger Ebert called it pure cinema, because it's like every element is just embraces the medium to its fullest.
Yeah. So if you'll permit me, I'd like to have one final, we can keep it brief, conversation. But I do think we need to address how this film was initially received by people talking about, oh, it's two, as you said, Trace, two cis men who are evoking like a male gaze on a lesbian text and so on.
Right.
And how we now have reappraised the film from a trans female perspective. So I want to bring in a new person just for this final part. So I'm going to reference trans writer Drew Burnett Gregory, who wrote Bound is a trans classic for Autostraddle. And here's the quote, and then we can maybe have a conversation. So, because revisiting Bound through the lens of the Wachowskis' transness doesn't mean erasing their identities at the time, it means acknowledging them. Bound isn't just a masterful lesbian film made by two queer trans women, it's a masterful lesbian film made by two queer trans women before they came out. That's an intrinsic part of the film. Bound doesn't even exist without the specific narrative of Lily and Lana's transitions. You think even a cis queer woman would have gotten the financing to make Bound as her first feature? Absolutely not. So often as trans people, we mourn the years we lost, but here's the cause to celebrate. Bound is one of the great Trojan horses in cinema history. And the reason I like that is because I think sometimes, especially within the queer community, we're very quick to gatekeep about like who gets to tell our stories, who gets to play us on screen, who gets to make these movies and so on. And I think, you know, I don't want to say there's a danger in doing that, because this is an example where, you know, oh, well, it was men. I'm using scare quotes for all of the fucking transphobes out there. Making this movie, and then it's like, oh, well, all you had to do was wait a decade or two, and then suddenly these are trans filmmakers and we can look at it differently. But I think we need to be cautious about the idea that gender and sexuality, and I know those are two very different concepts, but they're not fixed, right? Like, people do change, they evolve, and sometimes they get things right and sometimes they get it wrong, particularly within their art. But like, it's exciting to get to go back and reevaluate the Wachowski sisters' filmography through a trans lens. but it also doesn't negate the way that we would have talked about it back then and so on. Like, I don't know if I'm making sense.
No. I'll try to respond because I agree. It's like what Gwyneth Turner was saying in her article where she's like, I liked this movie, but begrudgingly because of who made this film. And while I understand those complaints or those concerns, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, but let's say hypothetically, the Wachowskis never came out and these were two cisgender men making this movie, but they did get 95% of the things right. This was a very authentic lesbian film. And so I guess while I understand having the conversations about what that means, I'm also kind of like, but they did, it either means A, clearly they did their work, they did their research or whatever. As obviously now we know they maybe had more personal insight into the feminine lifestyle or lifestyle, whatever. Then
just life.
Yeah, life. But nevertheless, it doesn't change the fact that we have this amazingly, explicitly fun, queer, great, authentic lesbian film, regardless of who made it or the background of who made it.
Yeah, no, I think it's really, for a long time, it's like any time that we can acknowledge trans filmmakers is amazing because there's so few. And and it always feels like we're breaking new ground for trans stories and trans creators. And to all of a sudden be like, oh wait, it was done in 1996. We just didn't know it. I think is really powerful because one, I mourn the life that they could have had if they, could have been out then and had the support.
They came out so late in their life.
But that's why even saying that we're like, again, I think it was Lily who was in the process of transitioning during this film making process.
Yeah, I think it was because I believe it was her who like basically set for them to have a happy ending in this film. That was the mission statement. That was the reason to make this film, was to make a genre picture that ends with the queers winning, and having a happy ending. And in a way, that's like the Wachowskis got a happy ending for themselves too. It happened really late, but that's as someone who transitioned late in life. Also, like I just turned 40 and it's only been a few years of transitioning. It's like I put a lot of bad shit happened for me and I never thought I was ever going to see 40. But now that I'm here living happy and I'm like, all that shit was worth it. You know what I mean? Like even if it's just to experience this happiness for one day, it was still worth it. And so I just think it also goes to show that you never know what someone's going through. And and so it's like, no, this was here the whole time, and there's still a lot of, because it was basically, the film was made no one knowing that they were trans, is how now that it's like this film, we can look back and go, wow, these trans filmmakers made it in 1996. But if you don't have that context, or you think about where we're at now, it's like impossible. Like there's such few trans filmmakers who are working at this level. You know what I mean? It's like it's almost like we only unearthed this as if like a Trojan horse. It was like, wow, they kind of snuck this one by, because if they didn't, it would have never been made. And these type of projects still aren't getting made.
I actually wonder, okay, so maybe this is opening up another avenue of this conversation, but do you think the fact that they were, again, at the time, cisgender white men made it easier to get this movie made, as opposed 100%. To had they been out as trans women at the time? I don't think this movie would have gotten made.
Not at all.
If they were anyone other than white cisgender men at that time, maybe even now, I like, think about it. Have we gotten a film? I don't know. Maybe I'll put this back out into the atmosphere. Have we gotten a film that even compares to this since Bound was released?
And I even wonder too, I mean, look, because I truthfully, I actually don't know much about the process of their transitions respectively, like when they decided to do certain things, blah, blah, blah. But a part of me is wondering, like, how long did they hold off on being out with it because of the privilege their cisgenderness gave them in the industry?
I don't know about that.
Well, sorry, I don't mean like a malicious intent, but it's like, they weren't comfortable coming out with it because they knew the opportunities they would lose if they did come out. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, I've got the dates here, so this is according to the internet, but it says Lana identifies as trans in 2010, and Lily officially comes out in 2016.
And the only movie they make after that, they do Cloud Atlas in 2012, then Jupiter Ascending, and then it's just Lana who does Matrix Revolutions.
Right.
So I mean that from a more like a sad point of view, where it's like, like how long did they keep this bottled up for fear of what it would mean if they actually came out, you know? Which
is a common experience for all trans people in whatever context, you know, their careers and lives and relationships are. You know, even like I remember when I first started realizing, like, no, I really am gonna have to figure this out and come out. I'm like, I married a gay man. What is that gonna mean? You know, it's like every aspect of your life becomes like, is this something I'm gonna lose?
Yeah, you have to explode it potentially just to be who you fucking are.
Yeah. And so it's just, I'm so grateful to them for having pulled this off at all, and that we have this today.
Yeah, and that we are still talking about it today. I mean, like, it's not just us. Like, everyone, so people are still discovering this movie, which makes me so happy. I just can't wait till, like, everyone knows this movie. And I mean, like, knows it, like, has seen it, not just knows it as that lesbian movie.
Yeah, because it is a great gateway to film noir too, because it's like, all right, if you watch this film, go back and watch Double Indemnity, and The Treasure of Sierra Madre, and there's just like a whole like new world for you if the thrills and the suspense of this film and like the cinematic language works for you, then it's like this is a great gateway to go back into to experience some really incredible films.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Agreed. Well, all right, everyone. That has been Bound. And before we announce what we're covering next week, Kay, first, thank you so much for coming on to this. It's been a pleasure having you on again. But let everyone know, where can they find you on social media?
Well, my pleasure, Trace.
Service me, please.
I'm just like, there's a drinking game. If you go back and listen to the number of times that Kay and I snuck that word in after Trey said it.
Gross.
Have fun.
I physically cringed every time.
We never once said moist.
This is true.
Oh, that's fine. I can take moist.
10 people just died.
Yeah, so I apologize. So you can find me on Instagram at Video Coven and Salem Horror Fest on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And I just wanted to also mention that I'm really excited to be back on the show, but especially to talk about this film because in November, as creative director of the cinema in Salem, I am hosting a series for Noirvember. We're going to be doing film noir films throughout the month, and the theme is femme noir. And so all of the films are focused on the woman of film noir, and so we have Gilda and Laura and Mildred Pierce and Rebecca and Mulholland Drive and Bound. And so if you're in the area, if you're in the region, like, we'd love to have you come and experience some really great filmmaking on the big screen.
That's amazing.
Great lineup.
Yes. Well, yes. Please, everyone, if you're in Salem, go watch that shit.
Or Boston. Yeah, we're close.
Right.
Yeah, or Boston, yeah. Or if you just want to, like, just walk there.
Make a road trip.
Yeah. Look, Salem is on everyone's bucket list, and you both now can say that you've been here.
Oh, yeah, no. So, as everyone knows, we went there for Salem Horror Fest last year to do our live show on The Hitcher, and honestly, it's an adorable little town.
Good food.
Good, yes.
It
God.
So hit me up if anyone out there comes to Salem, whether it's in context of this or not. Like, hit me up, Video Coven on Instagram. I'll give you some good recommendations. We can hang out. I always love to meet new queer people in our little city.
Well, y'all are gonna all think I'm fucking with you, but I swear to God, get steak tips wherever you go, because everywhere in Salem seems to know how to make amazing. It's like a thing up there. I don't know why. I've only had steak tips from IHOP, but every place we went in Salem had steak tips, and I was like, all right, and they are the best fucking thing I've ever had in my life.
I can honestly say that's a new one for me. I've never heard someone say that about, but hey.
Literally, I was like, why does everyone have steak tips here? And then someone said, oh, it's just a thing for this part of the country. And I was like, okay.
Okay. All right. Wrap it up.
Anyway, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. Go to our YouTube channel to check out our interviews with various horror filmmakers, and tune in once a month to hear about our most anticipated horror films for that month. If you want to chat with other listeners, please join our Facebook Horror Queers group. And if you have a moment, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you want even more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. If you subscribe today, you'll get about 263 hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on A Haunting in Venice, the next installment in Kenneth Branagh's Hercule Poirot series, The Nun 2, as well as 2 audio commentaries, one on Underworld to celebrate its 20th anniversary, and one on Saw 2 to coincide with the release of Saw 10. And we will also have a special episode on The Voyeurs to coincide with this month's main feed theme on erotic thrillers.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so I'm going to edit that, and next week I'm going to do it, and it'll be done in 10 seconds.
Oh my God. Fuck you. Joe!
So overwritten.
What are we talking about? I could just list the movies instead of saying what they are. I'll cut out the Hercule Poirot stuff. All right. Joe.
Yes.
What are we covering next week to conclude our erotic thriller month?
Yes, I'm not promising we will never cover another erotic thriller. It's just the end of 4 straight titles. But we saved the gayest one for last, Trace. So we are going to go international because the French do it best. So we're going to check out Stranger by the Lake.
Ooh, boy. First time watch for me. I am very excited to watch this.
Oh my goodness.
Sexy sex.
Trace, you're going to love it.
I have been primed. I know it's a slow burn, but I've heard about all the sexy sex.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, until next week, we can cross out, once and for all, Bound.
Indeed. And cross out Horror Queers.
Atlas Avenue, a long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kenneth Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.